Right there. There's one, just hold her. Okay. Perfect. Okay, now just another couple of things we wanted to show you about what you call your terminal tackle, which will be the lure and your weight and the way you rig up for typical bar fishing on the Fraser River. Now here I have some, you'll see some fairly heavy line. This is 40-pound test line, and this will be the line that will be our bar rig will sit on. I'll show you now. So we'll usually cut a piece off approximately 30 inches in length. Good cutter pliers here. And to these lines right here, first on one end, we'll be attaching what we call a fairly heavy-duty barrel swivels, usually brass or black, and a size 2 or 3. It's a fairly husky swivel, and you usually need that for this type of fishing. Generally, this piece of line here that I'm tying on is the one that you'll be attaching your bar rig on. And so use a simple barrel knot, or cinch knot to tie that one on.
It's your fish.
I think we're being interrupted again here. Look, a fish on again.
Let's just keep going,
We'll
Nick.
just carry on.
Even though it is the cameraman's rod.
Yeah, the cameraman has a fish on. Okay, here we have what you call your typical standoff bar rig. You can buy these in lengths of anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. I generally use these shorter ones. I just seem to prefer them, not that one's any better than the other. After you have a swivel on one end, you simply run the line to the spring on the end, so it just rides on the line for now. We'll adjust that later. I'll show you how. On the other end of that 30-inch piece of 40-pound test, we tie another barrel swivel. Sometimes it's a good idea to wet your knot before you tighten it up, just so you don't burn the line, possibly weaken it. Now we have that 40-pound chunk, as you can see, has a swivel on each end, and the bar rig is in the middle, the standoff. Okay, now what we usually do here is we tie your main line from your rod to this swivel. Okay, we'll just pretend that is there, and on the bottom end of this one here is where your weight will go. And to put the weight on, we usually use a piece of lighter line. I prefer anywhere from 10 to 15-pound test. You cut a piece about 6 inches long like this, and then you attach it to that swivel with the same knot. Again, it's usually a cinch or an improved cinch knot. Wet the line, snug it up, and then to that we attach a heavy duty, usually a number 1 or 1.0 snap swivel, as you can see, for attaching the weight. These swivels are very simple, they work quite well. You just undo them, there they are, you put your weight on there. I'll show you that in a moment. You attach that to this light piece of line, snug it up. So now we have the piece of line. We have the barrel swivel at the top, which our main line is attached to. We have our bar rig sliding on the piece of 40-pound test. Another swivel down here, and on that swivel we have the weight leader with the large snap swivel. Now the idea of this is this heavy terminal tackle is used at the bottom. It's generally heavier than your main line quite often, because this is the piece of tackle that gets all the abuse in the river. When you're fishing, it is this bar rig, when you hook fish, will be running up and down this line, so it can chafe it, can scar it up quite badly. But if you have a very heavy piece of line, you won't have a problem with it breaking. This down here, use a light leader in case your weight does happen to snag up somewhere. This can be broken off either by the fish or just by yourself if there's no fish on and you're just snagged. And all you'll lose is your weight and your swivel instead of losing your whole rigging. Also, if you have a light piece of line, if you happen to hook a big fish and he starts to run and fight hard and jump a lot, quite often this will break off by itself, and you won't have that large weight attached while you're fighting the fish, and it makes it much easier for you to land the fish. Okay, now I'm going to, I'd just like to explain to you a couple of more important points now, and show you some of the more important part of your tackle, of course, which will be the lure. And when you're bar fishing on the Fraser River, the most common and generally the most successful by far lure that is used are called spin glows. And you can see I have a small can of them here. spingles, types, they have different types of sizes. Generally, bar fishing use a size number 4 right up to a size 0, okay? Now this is a typical number 4 spingle. That's approximately, this is just size-wise, and this is a 0. So you can see there's quite a large difference in the size. And smaller spingles are used, and they are very adequate. Although at this time of year, even in clean water, sometimes people do very well on big spingles, just because, I guess, of the attracting qualities, because it's a bigger spingle for bigger fish, possibly. Okay, generally in the early part of the year, when the bar fishing is dealing mainly with Chinook salmon, these large silver spingles with a red head, or silver and with a red head, and green, or silver with a green head. Different types. You can see here, this one has prism wings. Whereas in the fall of the year, the general colors seem to shift over quite often to a half and half. This is the spingle we've been using today. It's what they call a chartreuse and red. You can see it's a fluorescent green and orange spingle, and it is very, very popular in the fall. That's not necessarily the only color works. These smaller ones with silver and red ones, like this with prism rims, they also work very well at this time of year. But generally, this color here is best in the fall. And I mean, it'll vary from time to time in a bar. Certain spingles seem to get hot, whether it's actually the color or just that a lot of people happen to be using that brand. Well, who knows? But there definitely seems to be some reaction of color for the amount of fish being caught. And you'll typically see different people using different types of spingles all year long. Okay, now once you've decided on just what lure you're going to use that day, I'll just show you a typical way of how we rig up, and generally what type of leader net, how long a leader, and how we tie up. This is the leader we're going to use today. It's a 25-pound. It's a Maxima chameleon line. It's a very, I prefer this line because it is a very, very hard line. It's very hard. It's got very good abrasion strength. You can nick it and scar it quite badly, and yet it keeps its strength. It's a very hard line, and it seems to work very well. Now, when we're bar fishing, the rules on the river regulate it to single hooks now. Certain parts of the year, it's a single barbless hook. Generally, for the bar fishing season, it's a single barbed hook. And that is the type of hooks you can see here. This is a 3-0, this hook is a 2-0. These ones are laser sharp hooks in a 1-0 pattern. And they're, as you can see, they're different colors and little different shapes and sizes. But generally, all these hooks are very suffice for fishing, bar fishing. Some people even use as large as 4 and 5-0 hooks when they're bar fishing. Right now, we'll just, for the sake of this demonstration, we'll use this 3-0 hook here. We use a simple, what they call a shank knot. The line is just placed through the eye. The loop is made like that. The line is simply coiled against the shank, wrapping the end of the line and the actual hook. Usually put 7 or 8 wraps on. The knot is held firmly with the fingers, and you snug up the ends. You end up with a knot that looks very similar like that. And you can either slip a bait in there, leave that loop there, leave the knot up the shank where you can slip a bait in, or you can snug the knot right up close to the eye of the hook. We'll just trim that off. Now after you have your hook tied, you use approximately anywhere from an 18-inch to 24-inch leader. We slip on a couple of beads, orange beads here, just like bumpers to keep the spingle away from the hook. The spingle is placed on the leader, and you can see this is what it should look like once you're done. See the spingle, and the spingle will spin freely then with the hook well back of the spingle, so when a fish hits it, it usually gets her just like that. Now, once you have your leader made up, we take the rigging we started with to begin with. Here's our standoff. Simply attach it by a simple cinch knot. Or if you want to, as some people do, they attach them to a small snap swivel and then they just snap it on there. Okay. once you have your rig up completed, it should look something like this. The spin glow on there. Okay, now to adjust the height of the spin glow off the bottom, your standoff, remember we put on the 40-pound test line, is sliding up and down here. You simply take a toothpick once you've figured out where you want it and push it in between the line and the bar, little bar standoff. Snug her up, and that will secure the standoff to the line. Maybe, Andrew, I can get you to just hold that. And you can see here it is quite stiff, and that is the way you want it. And generally, some people, depending on if they're fishing deep or shallow water, they'll fish it so the spin glow is either just below the weight when it's hanging down, or it's up. The hook is up between the two swivels from your weight to your main line. Okay, now the last piece of tackle you want to put on this, of course, before you start fishing, is the weight. Gordy has just handed me a typical bar fishing weight, which is a lot of people use. There's generally two types. They're all made of lead. One is usually a pyramid shape like this, which you can get in most local stores, and another one is the square weight, which some people prefer. And you can get these generally for bar fishing. You're fishing from anywhere from 6 to 18 ounces of weight, depending on the current you're fishing in and how heavy a rigger you're using. Like I mentioned before, if you're using very heavy line, there's more resistance in the water, you usually have to use a little more lead. But those are typical weights, and you can buy them at just about any tackle shop in the lower mainland, and they vary anywhere from sizes from 6 to 18 ounces is generally what is used. Today, at this present time, we're using approximately 10 to 12 ounces of a weight like this.
Sort of the size of the rocks, too, that on the bar that you're fishing has some bearing on it.
That's right. Chris had just mentioned there, brought up a point about the type of substrate on the bar, like the gravel. If you're in a bar that has got fairly heavy current and has very small gravel, you'll generally have to use more weight to make the rigging hold on the bottom. And whereas you have heavier gravel, bigger rocks, quite often you can get away with lighter weight because the weight will lodge in between the rocks. Usually just a good tug when you go to wind in will pull it loose. Okay, now that we have that there, the next thing I'll show you, I'll just show you the finished rigging on the rod. Your terminal rigging, your rod, your reel, you've got your proper setup on. Here's the spin glow, and like I was talking about before, how you can adjust it. And a lot of people fish with spin glows like this when they're bar fishing. They fish them with absolutely no bait, just like this, and the fish grab them strictly out of, I guess, the spin glow's buzzing in the current, and it's a very annoying thing. Maybe they're curious, or maybe they're actually hungry, but a lot of people, for a little bit more attractant, they'll put on roe, and roe is generally what we call the eggs from salmon, and it's usually been taken out of a fish and been cured with either Pro-Cure or borax. It will look quite similar to this here, as you can see. So if we decide we're going to use some of this little extra attractant, we'll cut a small piece off, approximately like that. Take your hook. Remember we talked about the bait loop before we tied in there? Push that loop up in the air, slip a piece of the bait in, and pull the loop up snug, but not real tight because you'll just cut the bait off. And that should hold it there fairly securely to add some scent and some taste. And also, if you're fishing fairly fast water, you may want to just add some small chunks of red thread and wrap it up a bit on there, and it'll also help to secure it. Now, one more little piece of equipment to use after you cast your line in and your rod is sitting in your holder now. And just what everybody has one of these little things you've seen before in your Christmas tree or something. They're just a little bell. You can buy them at most sport shops. And a little copper, little brass bell with you have a little spring clip on them where you can attach them to your rod. You may, on your rod tip, you may want to put a piece of tape on your rod so they don't scratch your rod. Make sure your line isn't pinched between the rod and the line, or the line and the rod. And then quite often, because your rod is out the edge of the water and you get an excitement of catching a fish or hooking a fish, you pull and the bell comes off. So take a piece of orange flagging like this, small piece, and just attach it to your bell. You can see there's still a small piece on here already. Just simply wrap it around the joint and tie a small knot like that way, when the bell falls off, it's easy to find. If it happens to fall in the water, you can just see the flag flagging. It just makes it much easier to retrieve your bell. So, just a couple more things we want to talk about before we leave. We've shown you today most of the way we bar fish, the type of rigging we use, the type of equipment that is used in bar fishing, and the Salmon Society is responsible for this video. We always do it every year. In our membership drive, we do a little work like this, and we just want a few things about unwritten rules on the bar as far as bar fishing goes, as far as etiquette on the bar. It's generally when you come to a bar and there's a number of rods out, don't ever try to force your way in a spot that's too small to fish, because it won't help you. You won't enjoy the fishing because you won't have enough room to fish properly, and the people that are already there, who were there before you, certainly won't enjoy it if you crowd them out of the place they're fishing in. I mean, there's lots of bars on the Fraser. Some are good or better, some are better than others, and some are poorer, but I mean, you have to get out there early in the morning to get the prime spots, and that's part of bar fishing. And if you can't get out there early, then you should be prepared to fish another bar or fish farther down till some other people leave. And then on the other hand, if you're the person that is fishing there and you know that you have room in between your rods for other people to fish, and you see people coming down the river in their boats looking for a spot to fish, you know, don't be scared to ask them to come in if they're looking for a spot to fish, if there's room there, or if they come up and ask you, then, you know, let them know. Fishing is for everybody, and it should be enjoyed by everybody. Another thing on the bar when you're fishing, whether you're just out for a day trip or you're camping on a bar, don't leave all your garbage. Take all your garbage home. The bar should look the same as when you came. You know, you don't want to leave all your food wrappings and sandwich papers and old rags laying around. Take your garbage with you and keep the bar clean so that everybody can enjoy it. Also, of course, you want to obey all the regulations. And as a Fraser Valley Salmon Society, we'd really appreciate your membership. The Salmon Society has done a number of things on the river as far as getting seasons open for sports fishermen, and they're now working on getting boat access and boat launches prepared at different places. And all this has got to do absolutely nothing but good for the betterment of the bar fishing on the upper Fraser River. So we hope you'll come, and if you're not a member already, you'll join the Salmon Society, and we appreciate seeing you out in the river someday. So I think now that we've explained a few other things like that, we'll maybe try a little more fishing here today and see if we can get a few more fish. And possibly later we may be able to explain, do some identification on salmon if we get a few different species.